Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of our Madden 25 Connected Franchise Owner Mode Fantasy Draft to YouTube Buffalo Bills Ralph Wilson series. The series with the impossibly long name that takes several practice attempts to say correctly. Hope you're having a great Tuesday. Today is episode number 52, and we are going to begin by, I think the best thing to do would be to talk a little bit about this past season and just kind of we're just going to give a little summary as to what happened in the off season. I assume everybody watched, well, probably not everybody. I assume most people watched the off season videos because they are really interesting. To me, the off season is almost more interesting than the actual season. But we're going to start off by just talking about what happened this off season, what went where, in case you didn't watch them, or if you did watch them and it's been a while, this is just a little refresher. After this, we're going to get on to practice, though. I promise you that. It's just a little recap video to talk about, again, what went down, and we have to order our depth chart anyways. So anyways, Aaron Rodgers, Jason Campbell back. Jordan Campbell is also back as our third quarterback. Jordan Rodgers almost left us in free agency, but he decided to stick around. Once he hit the open market, nobody else wanted him. He's a little older already. He's, I think, 26 years old, so he's not really necessarily a quarterback of the future, but he's someone who we've put a lot of time developing, time into in terms of his development. So we decided to keep him. May as well. He's got great speed and a couple other assets to his game that are fine. Not that he'll likely ever get into a regular season game. Also, obviously, this offseason, we had 3 retirements, 2 of which happened at the halfback spot. Ronnie Brown, last year's star running back, no longer with us. And our short yardage back, that being, of course, Brandon Jacobs, the human truck, is also no longer with us. They both went out on retired on top and aren't going to be back. And so what we did is we went out, we drafted Basman Hooker in the second round, the last pick of the second round. He's going to start off, he's going to get the first chance to be kind of our go-to back to replace Ronnie Brown. The main challenger for him is going to be Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams came back. He was a free agent at the end of last season, re-signed with the team right away, though. He's going to get an opportunity to be the every down back, depending on how the 2 guys progress in practice and in the preseason. And then our last running back, who's brand new, kind of to replace the 4th running back spot on the depth chart, is Jonathan Franklin. He's kind of our developmental back, kind of the role that Williams was last year, though. Because we don't really have a short yardage back anymore, our three-headed monster role is not really there anymore. It's not really prevalent enough. So Franklin's going to be around. He's just been in the league for 1 year, came up as a free agent, signed with us, still just 24 years old, so he's a young end. And then Darren Sproles will be back in his normal role as kick returner, passing down back, and occasional running back, 3 to 5 carries a game, that kind of thing. Again, we don't know. We're gonna let Hooker have the first shot in practice in preseason, and after that, Williams will get his shot. So Hooker and Williams will get shots together, but Hooker, just because his overall is higher, he's going to get the first opportunity. Fullback, completely unchanged. John Kuhn back again. Deshaun Jackson will obviously fill in. Baldwin will be our number 1 receiver. Jackson's going to fall into his regular spot from last year, the slot, where he played so much better than ever before. Doug Baldwin back in the top spot. Manningham back in his normal spot. Jackson back in his normal spot. And we're hoping to get Jacoby Ford involved in the offense a little bit more this year. We'll see how things progress, how things work. We might want to work more 4 receiver sets in because Ford has progressed nicely. His catching ability is way up, and he's I mean, as he's shown at the kick returning spot, he's an excellent weapon to use. Gino Castro was selected by us in the 4th round of this past year's draft, the last pick of the 4th round. And his catching ability is abominable. But aside from that, he's got amazing physical attributes. His speed is 99. His jumping is quite good. But his strength is off the charts for somebody of his speed and of his size. So he's going to be a bit of a developmental player for us. Bennett Eric is also a human being. That's all I have to say about him. He was our last pick of this last year's draft. Our first pick of the draft over was Eric Baldwin, who's going to be our starting tight end, barring something crazy and unforeseeable happening. Eric Baldwin, again, picked first by us by the 32nd pick of the draft, last pick of the first round. We're hoping he's just going to be Jimmy Graham 2.0. He's already 81 overall. We're going to let him progress, and he's going to be our starter. Again, barring something crazy happening. Miller will be our second or third tight end. He might be trade bait as the season goes on. I don't think he has a lot of value on the open market because he's already 31 years old. But we'll see. Jeff Cumberland will be back. And Niles Paul, though he doesn't fit on the depth chart, is also here, just doing his development thing, staying in the mix in case somebody gets injured. Offensive line's going to be exactly the same. Michael Roos, Bruce Campbell back at the left tackle spots. Brandon Grubbs, Danny Watkins back at the left guard spots. Centers are still Eric Wood and Roberto Garza. Right guard, still Luis Vasquez, backed up by Brandon Mosley, who decided to re-sign with the team. And then the right tackle is going to be Marcus Gilbert. Johnny Colbreath signed with us again as a free agent. We tried to re-sign him before free agency. He didn't want to come back. He hit free agency. He actually hit the open market, and we were able to bring him back. We signed him for starter money, but fortunately, our cap room is pretty good. I think we still, even before the season starts, we have something like $8 million that we can play with in cap space. So we've decided to bring him back. He developed so well for us last year. We're hoping he'll keep developing. And either we can keep him as an insurance policy. He'll be our kind of go-to backup, even at the right guard spot. Colbreath would be 80 overall, so he's kind of our go-to backup for across the offensive line. So we have a great 6th offensive lineman, and he could be trade bait potentially. I don't think he's a threat right now to Marcus Gilbert's starting spot. Either way, we brought in Al Netter as kind of a developmental right tackle behind Gilbert and Colbreath, just in case we do decide to trade Colbreath at any point. So he's new. At the left end spot, we have Thaddeus Gibson as our starter. Gibson, I was worried there for a second he wasn't on the list, but Gibson is back as the starter. Gibson, it was another player like Rogers and like Colbreath who hit the open market and decided to come back once he saw the other offers. He liked the money that he saw. Austin Lane is the backup there, filling in for Jason Hunter, who was the backup. Well, there was no backup last year. Rob Ninkovich here. I'll explain here. Rob Ninkovich, we'll go straight to the defensive tackle spot, is going to be our second defensive tackle. Ninkovich played very well on this spot for us last year in the Super Bowl once once he was able to come back from injury, and we didn't want to take Gibson out of the game. Ninkovich will be filling in here. He had 2 sacks in just the Super Bowl alone at the defensive tackle spot, and he'll be playing there this season. And then right ends is completely unchanged. Bruce Irvin is the top dog with Jason Hunter backing him up. So the only change for this entire team for this offseason is the addition of Austin Lane, who's the backup to Thaddeus at the left end spot. Outside linebackers, identical. Durant and Burris are back. A little bit of change up here at the middle linebacker spot. Bostic is starting. Jarrell Freeman, the new backup, replacing Dan Connor from last year, who was not re-signed. Right outside linebacker, the incumbent starter, Jason Whirls, though he does have a new backup. His 2 backups from last year who were not, the 2 were Jamal Westerman, who was not welcome back to the team, and the other being Brandon Jenkins, who didn't want to come back to the team, hit free agency, and didn't get any love. He might even still be a free agent, but we decided to bring in C.O. Moore. C.O. Moore has all the tools that Jenkins had and seemed more willing to play, so we wanted to reward that. At the cornerback spot, Vontae Davis, Dominic Rogers-Cromartie, Drake Kirkpatrick, Brian McCann, Chris Johnson, all back, just as they were last season. The only change is Jason Romano is the new player. He was just drafted, and he's going to probably not see any time. He's a developmental player for us at this point. The only change here is McCann will be starting over Johnson. So Johnson will be a depth player only. McCann will be our fourth player in, which is nice. He developed so well for us last year. The beginning of last year was just 73 overall, now 78. So we'll see. Hopefully he can get more and more playing time, keep fighting, moving up the depth chart. At the free safety spot, no change. DeMarcus Sanford, Chris Connie, the backup. Strong safety, also no change. Shamarko Thomas, Marcus Gilchrist are 2 players back. Kicker Greg Zerline, and Sam Martin, still the punter after he decided to re-sign with the team. A little bit of change here. We're going to be moving Gino Castro into the kick return slot. He will be back with Jacoby Ford. This might not be a permanent thing. We're going to give Castro an opportunity to prove himself this preseason. I was actually right. To prove himself this preseason and see what he does. If he's dropping balls and he's not playing well, then we will get rid of him. We will relinquish his kick return opportunities. But until then, he's good to go. The only other players not back on this whole team at the wide receiver slot, 29-year-old Dominic Hickson is no longer with us. 28-year-old Matthew Slater no longer with us. Those 2 gentlemen were just not offered new contracts to come back to the team. Aside from that, though, as you can see, very much a similar team. Very few changes. There's a lot of change at the running back position, a little bit of change at the wide receiver position, but only in the depth spots. A big change at the starting tight end spot. But aside from that, just a little bit of rejigging on the defensive line. Very, very few changes, just depth in terms of the linebacking core. Safeties all the exact same. In corner, we flip-flop 2 guys in the depth chart, and then we add 1 guy in as a player who's just in as a developmental guy. So I think a healthy amount of change. And here's something I want to quickly address as we move on to the settings, because we are going to be changing some settings for this season. I had people when I first drafted my team in the fantasy draft. They're concerned that I drafted some older players. Now it's the same thing with. At one point this season, I had someone who I'm sure is a really nice person, but they said, "Oh, well, you got to you got to trade Deshaun Jackson for a younger receiver." And the reality is, last season Deshaun Jackson was 26 years old. And they said, they wanted me to trade Deshaun because he was getting too old. He was getting too senile, and they wanted to see someone younger in his spot. And the reality is, I agree with people who want to see young players on teams. But the reality is, if you have all young players on your team, what happens is all of your young players, and I've talked about this a bit, so I won't go into a ton of detail, but basically all your young players, in my opinion, hit free agency within the same couple years as each other once they've developed, and they demand a big salary. And at that point, you can't afford to pay all of your players who you've developed. And so what I did when we decided to do the fantasy draft was select a cross-section of players. Some really young players. We went young basically all throughout our DBs. None of our DBs are 30 or over, except for Chris Johnson, who's just a depth guy. We went pretty young at the linebacker spot. I think Justin Durant is now 29, but aside from that, we were young. Bostic was a rookie last season, and on the defensive line, we mixed it up. Vince Wilfork, Rob Ninkovich, a little closer to retirement, both in their 30s now. But Bruce Irvin, obviously very young. Thaddeus Gibson, nice and young. And then on the offensive side of the ball, pretty young across the board on the offensive line. The only person 30 or older is Michael Roos, the left tackle. Tight end, we went a little older at Heath Miller, who's already 30. And then at the running back spot is the only place where we really went old. All of our three-headed monster was over the age of 30, with Sproles, Brown, and Jacobs. Quarterback, Aaron Rodgers just turned 30, but obviously quarterbacks can play longer. And so the reason I did that is so now, after this season, we said, oh, well, we need to replace Casey Hampton, who was an older defensive tackle. The reality was Gibson stepped up so we could move over Ninkovich, so that's taken care of. Oh, and we also need to take care of our tight end spot and our running back spot. Okay, let's hit that in the draft. And that way, we were able to replace just a couple little things that you need. And as time goes on, the next thing that might come up is we might say, oh, you know what? Vince Wilfork's getting pretty old, and then we can take a look at replacing that spot. Maybe we say, oh, Michael Roos is his play's degrading. We need to take a look at our left tackle spot, And guess what? Every offseason, you just fix 1 or 2 spots. And you keep doing that, and guess what? Every 10 years, you've completely made over your team. But there's never been an offseason where you said, oh my God, I have to re-sign 30 players, 20 of whom want serious pay raises, and I'm going to have to let 8 of them walk. It's just not realistic. And so don't be one of these people. You don't want to be on either extreme. You don't want your whole roster to be made up of guys who are 33 years old. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is it's best to have a really healthy cross-section of players, some veterans, some rookies, and then lots of guys in the middle, so that you're never in a position where you have to remake none of your roster or all of it. A little bit of turnover every year. Right this year, I think we brought in 5 guys that we drafted, and we let about 6 guys go in free agency. And then we added a couple of free agents. So we maybe only have, I think, 8 players who are brand new to the team this year. And if you do that every single season, guess what? You never have to run into problems. So anyways, now we are on to our settings. And as a lot of people said, going 19-0 last season, they want to see all Madden. And I've talked a lot in my previous videos about why I don't like all Madden, but I am going to change it there for at least the preseason, see how we like it, see what happens. After this, though, we are going to also increase the quarter length. We're going to go to 8 minutes for this game. We want to try and get a little bit more realism into the game in terms of how well or how much time players get on the field. Obviously, last year, our offensive numbers a lot lower than actual NFL in-game numbers. So we're going to go up to 8 minutes. Now, is this set in stone? Obviously not. Some people are saying, oh, just get rid of the accelerated clock. Personally, I like the accelerated clock because it keeps late game situations really realistic, right? You can't start a play, complete a 30-yard pass at the 1-minute 39-second mark, and then start your next play at the 1-minute 37-second mark. It just doesn't work like that in the actual NFL, unless you, of course, call a timeout. So we're going to keep the accelerated clock on. We're going to lengthen the quarters just a little bit, and we're going to move it up to all Madden. So I think that's a decent compromise. We move up to all Madden, and we move up the quarter length. Some people were also saying, oh, you got to turn down the sliders for run blocking because you run on the ground too easily. The reality is, we used our many of our high picks in the fantasy draft on offensive linemen, and we did that for a reason, so that we could be a team that ran the ball dominantly well. And so I'm not gonna swap that out by lowering things. I think the reason we run well is because we have good running backs and we have a good offensive line and a good scheme. So I'm not going to compensate that by moving down the slider. So let me guys know what you think. Do you like moving it up to all Madden? Should we keep it at all pro? Do you guys like moving the quarters? Do you think 6 minutes was fine, or do you want to see maybe 10 minutes or 12 minutes? Right now, none of this is set in stone. We're going to work with it for the preseason. And at the end of the preseason, the first game tomorrow on Wednesday, episode number 53, if we say, you know what, these quarters were silly, we need to add more time because 2 minutes barely made a difference. We can go up to 10 minutes or 12 minutes. Or if we say, you know what, this is stupid, 6 minutes was fine, we can go back to 6 minutes. Just let me know in the comments what you guys think. Again, I'm completely open. This isn't my series, this is all of our series. So whatever you guys think is best is what we're going to go with. Anyways, we got our first practice scenario of the season. Here we go. We got Irvin, Ninkovich, Jacobs, and Gibson left to right on the defensive line. Flipping flops come out. Bostic gets picked up. A hell of a block. A 20-yard run, 21-yard run to start off the 2014 season in practice. What a wonderful way to start. That is one concern I have. One concern I had in the Super Bowl with moving Ninkovich inside was that we would be oh, and look at this. Another huge run. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie tracks him down. My goodness. Well, this is all Madden now, folks. It's not all pro like it used to be. I've talked a lot about why I don't like all Madden, and these are kind of the reasons why. All of a sudden, players who were very good and are very good, are 90, 95 overall, suddenly forget how to play football. They're a nice play by Jason Whirls, who runs completely by the running back. Luckily, Sharknado Thomas was coming up made a nice play. So that's the first play that doesn't go for an obscene amount of yardage. Man, this brings back memories. And to put it, to tell you guys again, in case you can't remember, we haven't talked about the All Madden, All Pro thing in a long time. I played on All Madden all through a lot of my Madden series in the past. It's not like I've never done it. I know what it is and I know what it's about. I just don't like it a lot of the time because for exactly that reason. It makes great players play like bumbling buffoons sometimes. But either way, here we go. We're going to keep playing like this, at least for the first preseason game and the first practice. Give us a shot. And there's a sack. Thaddeus Gibson, who else, comes up, makes the play. Nice thing to see there. And here's Castro, of course, back to return. He's going to be the guy coming in off the edge. They're going to though the field goal goes up and it's good. So the flippity flops up 10-7 now. We're going to have 2 minutes 7 seconds left to put up a field goal of our own to tie this practice scenario, send it to overtime, or if we want to score a touchdown and end it all. Ford will be the returner here. He will not get outside. He gets nailed by number 31. That appeared to be of the flippity flops. And we're back out. So let's go ahead. We're going to start off by giving the ball to who else but Basman Hooker. We are only 4 seconds before the and wow, Hooker looks really big for a 5'11" running back. Anyways, here we go. We give the ball to Hooker, and a nice little power move, I guess, to get a couple yards out of something that was really not there. We're at our own 18-yard line now. 2-minute warning has come and gone. And we'll look to go slot corner here. Man, I am so excited to work with Eric Baldwin and Basman Hooker. Hooker's going to come open out of the backfield here. He gets tackled for a gain of 4 yards. A nice play by the strong safety there of the flippity flops coming up. Time is running. We're going to go P.A. Bill. I think it said curls, but I don't think it could have because nobody's running a curl route. Play action. Deshaun Jackson comes wide open. He gets the first down and gets out of bounds at the 29-yard line. We only have 1 timeout, so we want to keep getting out of bounds. That's a nice little play, though, to get a first. And here we're going to go Z spot. And what we're going to do here is we're going to quickly flip Eric Baldwin's route to an out. So he's clearing out. The only person open, though, is Doug Baldwin in the middle. I wonder if Doug Baldwin and Eric Baldwin are related. Either way, we're not going to be able to call a timeout here. A nice play, a nice gain, but we just need to keep moving quickly because the clock is running, of course. We're going slants here. Baldwin is lined up in the slot, and he's going to come open. He cannot bring it in. The safety had his arm in there. My God, he is big. 6'7". That's Rob Gronkowski, Jimmy Graham height. I'm really hoping, and he's a vertical threat tight end, which is exactly what I want to use him as. Here, let's test him. He's deep, and a nice coverage again by the safety. Oh, that was a corner, number 29 of the flippity flops. So we try to go to not Hooker. We try to go to Eric Baldwin, our first pick of the 2014 draft. Back-to-back plays, well covered though. Here we need to get 10 yards for a first down. We're going to flip Jackson's route to a slant. He beats his man inside, and he's clearly interfered with as he goes for the ball, but no call. He got hit like a rag doll there, and just no call. Okay. I guess the referees don't want to throw the flag. And so we're going to go, and we have no choice. This is practice. We can't stop the clock. We need to go for it here on 4th and 10. I'd love to hit Jackson or Baldwin coming through here. Baldwin does come open down the field, and he makes his first catch as a professional. Granted, it's in practice, and that'll make us call our timeout. Nice catch there. He did get lit up by the safety, but he held on to the ball for a first down up to the 43-yard line of the flippity flops. A big first down, or 4th down conversion for a first down. We're going to go to him again at the, and he gets in, stays in bounds. What a play there. Man, I'm looking forward to working with this kid so much. man, I just have good feelings about it. I would love to give the ball here to Hooker again, but I just can't do it. We don't have enough time to risk the run. And Eric Baldwin comes wide open again. He has room. He gets up to the 5-yard line, and there's tons of time now. We can run the ball easily, I think. We got 40-plus seconds left. What a play there. Baldwin over the middle comes wide open, and with his speed does great things after the play. And Hooker, he gets wrapped up by the corner. We should have attacked a little more directly. If I'd been a little smarter with that, we could have scored there. But that's okay. Clock's still running. We're going to go to the air here so that the clock stops. And open in the end zone. It's picked off. The defensive end is in coverage in the end zone. Somehow came up with that ball. What looked to be a completion. And I want to take a look at the replay there. Baldwin was open. That's Doug, not Eric. I wonder if Doug and Eric are brothers, like everybody seems to be brothers. Unfortunate. We tried to lead. I'm amazed at how little Baldwin was able to get by in terms of speed. He seemed to be increasing. Now, he was running a slant play. I suppose that's why. His momentum was carrying to the back of the end zone. If he was running straight left to right across the end zone, he would have come open, but he didn't. That's just a poor decision by me. I'll take that. And so our first practice as an all-Madden squad does not go very well. Does not go very well. We lose in the practice scenario to the Flippity Flops, who are the most competent version of the Flippity Flops I think we've ever seen before. And they're going to kneel this game out. Though a nice little introduction to particularly Eric Baldwin, our first pick. He's done things today that I've never seen Heath Miller do in this game. I know Heath Miller was a great tight end back in the day for the Steelers, a first-round pick, a wonderful 10-year NFL veteran, but there's some things he can't do anymore that Baldwin certainly can. All right, guys, so let me know what you think about the changes in terms of the personnel on the team for the offseason and as well for the rules and regulations, the settings for this connected franchise. We will update all that again tomorrow at the preseason game. Until then, though, I'm Tuxedo T-shirt. Thanks for joining me, and I'm out.